I work the night shift at a grocery store. It's one of those 24-hour chain stores on the edge of town, not really near anything. A lot of people don't realize how lonely a place like that can be at 2 or 3 in the morning. The lighting is weirdly bright, like airport bright, but the silence, it's oppressive. There's no music, barely any PA announcements, just the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional crackle of static from a walkie. Someone forgot to turn off. I took the job because it paid slightly more than minimum wage, and I figured, hey, less customers at night, easier work. I was wrong. The night shift sucks. You get the weirdos, the wanderers, and the people who definitely shouldn't be shopping for milk at 3:15 a.m. But only one of them made me actually fear for my life. I'm gonna call him David, even though I never got his real name. He started showing up about 3 months after I started working there. Always around the same time, 2:30 a.m. He was thin, maybe in his 50s, with greasy gray hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in a year and a half. He wore a stained brown trench coat, no matter the weather. I don't even think he blinked that much. Always looked a little too long at things. At first, I just thought he was homeless. He never bought much, usually just a can of soup or a single banana. Sometimes nothing at all. He just walked the aisles. But he was quiet, so I didn't care. We had regulars that were way more annoying, drunks, loud teenagers, even a guy who once tried to microwave his socks in the deli area. David didn't talk much, just nodded at me when he came in, until he started talking. I remember the first night he said anything. He was in aisle 7, the cleaning supplies aisle, and I was restocking paper towels. I heard the shuffling of his footsteps before I saw him. Then came his voice, raspy like someone who'd been chain smoking since '84. You ever wonder if bleach works on people the same way it works on tile? I looked up. He was holding a bottle of Clorox, staring at it like it held the secrets of the universe. I gave a nervous laugh. I guess? He didn't laugh, just stared at me. Only one way to find out. He placed the bleach back on the shelf, walked away. That was the first time I got a weird feeling in my gut. I told my manager, Kevin, the next morning. He just shrugged. Creeps are part of the night shift package, he said. Unless he steals or threatens you, don't worry about it. I should have pressed harder. I should have insisted we file a report, but I didn't. I just let it slide. David came in more often after that, almost every night, and each time he got a little bolder. He started watching me, like really watching me. He'd follow me from aisle to aisle, pretending to browse, but always glancing over his shoulder, peeking around corners, just far enough not to be obvious, but not far enough to be subtle. Sometimes he'd whisper to himself. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone, it was like he was talking to someone right behind me. One night, I was in the back, breaking down boxes, when I felt someone standing just a bit too close behind me. I turned, box cutter still in hand. It was David. He was smiling, not like a friendly smile, more like a knowing smile, like he'd just seen something that made perfect sense to him, but would horrify anyone else. Don't slip with that, he said, eyes on the blade. Wouldn't want you to open yourself up. I didn't say anything. Just walked away, heart pounding. That night, I made sure every door was locked twice before I left. I started parking closer to the building. I even bought pepper spray. The next week, he stopped showing up. I actually relaxed. I thought maybe he'd moved on. Maybe he got arrested. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore. I was wrong. He came back, and this time he brought something with him. It was a Friday night, or I guess technically Saturday morning, around 2:45 a.m. I was alone up front, doing cigarette inventory, when the doors slid open. David walked in, but something was off. He wasn't wearing his coat. He had on a plain white shirt and jeans. His hair looked combed. He was holding a plastic bag, not one of ours. It was stained, slightly wet at the bottom. He didn't make eye contact, just walked straight past me, toward the freezer section. I watched him on the security monitor. He wasn't shopping. He was pacing. He'd walk to the end of the aisle, stop, look at the bag, and then pace again. I got a bad feeling. That gut punch kind of instinct you don't ignore. I picked up the phone and dialed Kevin. No answer. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? There's a weird guy acting odd in the freezer aisle? They wouldn't care. Not here. So I did something stupid. I went to go talk to him. When I turned the corner into the aisle, he didn't even flinch. "Hey man," I said, keeping my voice even. "You doing okay?" He looked up at me slowly. His eyes were rimmed red, and there was a cut above his eyebrow. He held out the bag. "I brought you something," he said. I didn't take it. I can't accept gifts, man. Store policy. You'll want this." He opened the bag. Inside there was a photo, old Polaroid style. It showed a man tied to a chair in a dark room. His head was slumped forward. Blood pooled at his feet. I stepped back instinctively. "What the hell is this?" I asked. David just smiled. "You ever meet someone and just know they were fake?" He whispered. "Like they were wearing someone else's face?" I was frozen. My heart was going a mile a minute. "I fixed him," he said, "and now I want to show you how." I turned and walked away fast. I didn't care if I got fired. I grabbed my phone and ducked into the stockroom. I called the police. I gave a quick description. Told them there was a man in the store possibly carrying disturbing materials, maybe dangerous. They said they were sending someone. When I stepped out again, David was gone. The bag was on the floor in the aisle. When I looked inside, the photo was missing. I checked the cameras. He'd walked out 5 minutes before. Calm, casual, like nothing was wrong. The cops arrived 20 minutes later. I showed them the footage, told them everything. They took my statement but said there wasn't much they could do. The bag? Gone. No fingerprints, no evidence. I guess he knew better. That night, I didn't go home. I drove to a 24-hour diner and just sat there till sunrise. I told Kevin I was taking a few nights off. He didn't fight me on it. Honestly, I think he was just glad I hadn't quit yet. But it didn't end there. 3 days later, my phone buzzed at 3 or 4 a.m. I had a notification from our store's employee app. Just a system-wide alert. Unusual activity detected on store premises. Overnight staff, proceed with caution. I opened the security camera feed from my phone, perk of being night manager, even though it didn't pay more. The store looked empty, except for aisle 7. David was standing there, looking straight up at the camera. No movement, just staring. I closed the app, called the police again. This time, I didn't even wait. I drove straight to the store with my pepper spray in hand. By the time I got there, he was gone. But someone had left something taped to the front door. A Polaroid of me, sleeping, in my bed. That's when I quit. I didn't even go inside. I sat in my car shaking, staring at that photo, trying to understand how he got into my house, or if he'd been close enough to see through the window. The police were called again. They did a sweep of my apartment. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No real evidence. The responding officer, some guy who looked too young to be wearing a badge, told me I probably overreacted. Overreacted. There's a man out there who may have killed someone. He left me a photo of it. He stalked me, watched me sleep. And I'm the one overreacting? I moved the next week, got out of that town, took a delivery job in a bigger city. Night shift, yeah. But it's different. Busier, safer, more people around. I don't go grocery shopping past 9 p.m., ever. And I keep blackout curtains on every window. I haven't seen David again, but I can't shake the feeling that I will. And next time, he won't leave a photo. I've always hated closing shifts. I work at a national electronics chain, one of those places that smells like plastic, cheap cardboard, and burnt coffee the second you walk in. I won't say which one, but if you've ever walked into a store with loud TV displays, shelves full of overpriced HDMI cables, and a sales guy trying to upsell you a phone case, then you know the kind of place I mean. I'm 23, just out of school, trying to figure my crap out. I took this job while I save up to move out of state. It's not glamorous, but it pays enough, and most nights are uneventful. Until last Friday. I was closing alone that night. Technically, we're supposed to have 2 employees stay until lockup, but my coworker Brian dipped out early with a fake cough and a wink. I didn't push it. I wanted the overtime. The store closes at 9. This guy walked in at 8:52. I almost didn't hear the door. I was in the middle of wiping down the register counter when the chime went off. I looked up and immediately got a bad feeling. I've worked retail long enough to know that some people just set off your instincts. Not always for any logical reason, but something in you knows when someone isn't right. He was in his late 40s or early 50s, Long gray coat, oversized even for his frame, greasy hair that stuck to the sides of his face like seaweed. His eyes were wide, like he was too alert, too still. Something about his whole vibe was off, like he was trying too hard to look like he belonged there. "Hey," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "We're closing soon. Need help finding anything?" He looked at me like he hadn't expected me to speak. Then he smiled. Wide. Teeth too straight, too bright. Yeah, I'm looking for the..." He paused, looked around the store dramatically. "You guys carry the Ecolux T3000, right?" I blinked. "The what?" He repeated it. "The Ecolux T3000. It's a speaker. I've worked in that store for over a year. I've never heard of that brand. I asked him to spell it. He did. I typed it into our inventory system. Nothing. I don't think that's a real brand," I said carefully. "You sure that's the name?" He kept smiling. "You sure you checked right?" "Yes." His smile didn't change, but something in his eyes did. The stare got hungrier. "I saw it online," he said. "On your site." "We don't carry that brand," I said, firmer now. "If you saw it online, maybe it was a third-party seller." He stepped closer. "Are you sure you looked properly?" he asked, tilting his head. "Sometimes things hide unless you know the right place to look." There was something wrong about the way he said that. Like he was talking about more than just electronics. Like there was a game going on and only he knew the rules. I took a small step back. My hand was near the silent alarm button under the register. I wasn't going to press it yet, but I wanted to feel it under my fingers. "Sir," I said, keeping my voice neutral, "we're closing now. If you're looking for something specific, you can try our website." He looked around like he was seeing the store for the first time, then back at me. "You here alone?" he asked. That did it. I hit the button. It doesn't call the cops or anything. It just triggers a silent camera snapshot and logs the event in the store's internal system. Basically, it says, "Hey, something sketchy happened at this exact time." "I'm going to have to ask you to leave now," I said, backing up behind the register. He didn't move. "I think I left my phone in my car," he said, still smiling. "Don't lock up yet, okay?" Then he turned and walked out. I locked the door behind him immediately, turned the deadbolt, pulled the security gate halfway down. I stood there for a second, catching my breath. Then I saw him. He didn't get in a car. He was standing just outside the glass, facing the door, his back to the parking lot, just staring in. His hands were in his coat pockets, and he had this expression like he was waiting for a bus, calm, bored, patient. I didn't know what to do. He wasn't technically doing anything wrong, but the way he was standing there felt threatening. I called the non-emergency police line, told them there was a suspicious man loitering outside after closing. They said they'd send someone. I waited. After about 5 minutes, he walked off. Not into a car. Just disappeared into the lot. I waited another 20 minutes. No sign of him. I finished closing the register, shut down the floor lights, and walked to the back to grab my bag. I debated calling an Uber, but my car was just out front. I figured I could sprint to it if I had to. I pushed out through the back employee door into the alley behind the store. And that's when I saw him again. He was standing across the alley, behind a dumpster, still as a statue. But this time, he had his phone out. Pointed at me. I froze. "What the hell?" I yelled, hoping the volume would scare him off. He didn't move, just slowly lowered the phone, turned, walked away. I got in my car and locked the doors so fast I dropped my keys. I was shaking too hard to drive at first. I just sat there for a minute, watching every shadow. I drove home with one eye on my rear view the whole time. I didn't sleep that night. Saturday, I reported it to my manager, showed her the timestamp where I hit the silent alert. I don't think she believed me. She said the cameras didn't catch anything useful, but she'd file a report just in case. She also reminded me that the company wasn't liable for incidents outside the premises. Gee, thanks. Sunday, I didn't work. I stayed inside all day, curtains drawn, double-checking the locks every hour. Then Monday night rolled around. I was on closing again. This time, I had another coworker, Laura, but she left at 8:30 after checking with the manager. I was alone again for the last half hour. I didn't see him come in, but I saw his car, or at least I'm 99% sure it was his. It was an old gray Honda Civic, parked at the far end of the lot, windows tinted way too dark, engine off, headlights off, just sitting there. I didn't even want to leave. I locked the doors and called mall security. We're attached to a dead strip mall that has one guy in a cart drive around every hour. I told them a suspicious car was out front, and I felt unsafe. The guy said he'd do a drive-by. 10 minutes later, the Civic was gone. I thought maybe that was it. But when I finally left through the back again, I saw it parked at the opposite end of the lot. It had moved. No lights. Just sitting there. I didn't even pretend to be brave. I called the cops this time. Told them I was being stalked, that the guy had come into the store before, and now he was waiting for me. They took their sweet time as usual. By the time they arrived, the car was gone. Again, they took my statement, but said unless he approached or threatened me, there wasn't much they could do. So I started taking my own photos. Every time I saw the car, I snapped a picture. Tuesday night, same car, same spot. Wednesday, closer. Thursday, he wasn't in the car, but there was a photo on my windshield. It was a picture of me, taken from behind. I was locking the store doors. The note on the back said, "You didn't look properly." I've called out every shift since. I don't care if I get fired. I don't care if rent's due. I've already filed for a restraining order, but the officer said it'll take a while without a name or plate number. I'm sleeping at a friend's. My car is parked 3 blocks away under a different address. I don't know how he found me. I don't know why he picked me. All I know is that something tells me he's not done yet. I've been working cleanup gigs for the better part of 20 years now. You name it. Hoarder homes, pest infestations, crime scene residue. I've seen it all. People always ask how I stomach it, and I just tell them it's like anything else. You go nose blind after a while, and the rest becomes muscle memory. But there's one job I can't chalk up to just another paycheck. One that made me walk away from the business altogether. It happened 2 years ago. Right around October, when the air gets that sharp bite in the evenings and everything smells like wet leaves and chimney smoke. My buddy Glenn and I were the only guys left at our little local cleanup company, small-time outfit, mostly contracted by landlords or the city. The owner, Dave, handed us an off-book job on a Friday afternoon. "This one's weird," he said, like he was trying not to look us in the eye. "Old farmhouse. Place is abandoned. Owner died years ago. Some out-of-state bank owns it now, and they want it cleared before it goes up for auction." "Why off-book?" I asked. Dave just shrugged. "No paperwork, cash under the table, you boys want it or not?" Glenn grinned like he always did. "Easy money? Let's do it." We loaded up the van with masks, gloves, and enough industrial-grade cleaner to poison a city block. Dave gave us the keys and a printout of directions. No GPS. Place didn't even have an address on Google Maps. That should have been the first red flag. The house was way out there, at least 40 miles from the edge of town, deep into the woods past an old 2-lane highway. The kind of place where cell reception gasps and dies 5 minutes after you leave the pavement. By the time we saw the house, the sun was already dropping behind the trees and painting everything in this weird amber light. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. 2 stories tall, paint peeled to the bone, porch sagging like a snapped spine. The windows were covered with what looked like old bed sheets nailed from the inside. The air smelled wrong, even before we got out of the van. Wet soil, rotting wood, and something meaty. We both put on our respirators before we even stepped inside. The door creaked like a horror movie cliche. The air inside was worse, thick and damp, like breathing through a wet rag. The wallpaper was curling off the walls, and the black mold was everywhere. Climbing the corners, eating into the ceiling, growing in fuzzy patches on the furniture. I could practically hear Glenn calculating the overtime. "What the hell happened in here?" he muttered. We started in the living room, yanking out trash and anything that looked like it had absorbed too much mold. The weird thing was, there wasn't much clutter. Just stacks of old newspapers, weird handmade dolls that looked like they were made of hay and twine, and, oddly, rows of candle stubs melted into saucers. There were no light bulbs in the house, not a single one, just candle holders in every room. I made a joke about it. Maybe they were Amish cultists or something. But Glenn didn't laugh. I think he was already on edge, so was I. It only got worse when we found the symbols. The entire dining room wall had been painted black. Not just black, glossy, like someone used tar, and carved into it, literally scratched into the paint and drywall, were dozens of overlapping circles and triangles. Some looked like letters, others like eyes. Glenn ran his gloved finger along one of them and laughed nervously. Maybe they were a cult. We didn't say much after that, just kept working. I kept my earbuds in and tried to drown out the creaks and groans of the place with some old punk rock. But even over the music, I could hear something, like a low humming. I thought it was the pipes until I realized the house didn't have any running water. The kitchen sink was bone dry, the pipes gutted. The electricity didn't work either. We'd brought a few battery-powered lights and lamps, and the only illumination we had came from those and the rising full moon outside. It was Glenn who said it first. "You hear that?" I took my earbuds out. The humming was louder now, coming from beneath us. We looked at each other. "The basement?" I asked. He nodded, but he didn't look thrilled. We hadn't gone down there yet. In fact, we hadn't even found the basement door. We spent about 15 minutes moving crap around before we found it behind a torn-up rug and a broken dresser in the hallway. The door wasn't like the others. It was metal, bolted from the outside with 3 rusted locks. That's when the smell hit us. Not mold, not rot. Something worse, like blood and meat, and old wet towels left to ferment in a hot garage. We didn't open it. We didn't even touch it. We both just kind of stared at it. Glenn looked at his watch. It was 11:42 p.m. "Let's wrap up," he said, his voice quiet. We packed what we could, double-bagged the moldy garbage, and loaded it into the van. The humming didn't stop. In fact, it was louder now, like something was pressing against the floorboards. And then came the bang. It came from directly under our feet, beneath the living room, a single heavy thud like someone dropped a sledgehammer on concrete. Glenn and I both froze, then another bang, then another, each louder, more frantic. Then came the yelling. It was human, hoarse, loud, male. Not words, just screaming, pained, furious screaming. We didn't think. We ran, out the door, off the porch, into the van. I started the engine with shaking hands. Glenn kept looking over his shoulder, like something was going to come crawling out of the dark after us. We drove until we hit the highway again. I don't even remember the road back, just Glenn breathing heavy and the buzzing in my ears from adrenaline. We never went back. Dave called us the next day, pissed we left gear behind, but we didn't care. We told him about the screaming. He said there's no way, that the house had been empty for 20 years. I didn't believe him. Neither did Glenn. A few weeks later, Glenn sent me a link to a Reddit thread, some r/local history post about weird symbols found in rural homes from the 1960s and 70s. One of the photos matched the wall we saw exactly. The post said those homes were rumored to be old cult safe houses, places where members went off-grid to practice their cleansings. Most were condemned after investigators found traces of animal blood, human waste, and ritualistic materials. I don't know what was in that basement. I don't want to know. But something was alive down there. Something human, or at least once human. Every now and then, I wonder if someone found our gear in that house, if they unlocked that door. And I wonder if they made it out.